Hello, welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. Today we are talking about music in prison. I'm making this video because some of you asked about it. A lot of you know that I make music and I played music in prison. So that's what we're talking about. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's go. Okay, music in prison, how does it work? How's it set up and stuff? In order to understand that, you need to understand the level system. When I was in Kansas prisons, we had a level system, an incentive level system. How it worked was if you stayed out of trouble for 4 months, you got what was called your level 2. And if you stayed out of trouble for 4 months beyond that, you got your level 3. With each level comes more and more privileges. You can buy more at canteen, you can buy electronics, things like that. And also, when you're level 2, you can check out acoustic guitars on the yard. So that's pretty cool. When I first got to El Dorado, I was level 1 because I just got some write-ups in Ellsworth. But a few months later, 4 months later, I got my level 2 and I, started taking guitar lessons. How did I take guitar lessons? How did I have access to the guitar? In the gym and yard office, there's a yard you can go out to in El Dorado, and there's also a gym. Both are open at about the same time, and there's an activities specialist who has an office in the gym. And in the activities office, there was a guitar that people who were level 2 or 3 could check out. Later, they added a stipulation that you had to give them your inmate ID when you checked out a guitar, and I think they made it to where you didn't need a level to check out a guitar anymore. I don't remember exactly if that was the case, but I feel like that's what they did. Anyway, so you would go in, you would hand the activity specialist your ID, and you would check out the acoustic guitar. When I got there, they only had 2 acoustics, and they weren't very high quality. I think one was a Rogue, and the other was an Ibanez. I usually played on the Rogue because the Ibanez was junk. Ibanez can make some good stuff, but it's usually in their mid to high range, in my opinion. But that's just the luck that I've had with them. In my experience, the cheaper Ibanez stuff isn't that great, particularly with concern to the neck. The neck will move around every which way on you, and I don't like that. Anyway, so you'd go out to yard, you'd go to the gym and yard office, you'd hand them your ID, you would check out a guitar. When you brought the guitar back at the end of the yard period, they would look over the guitar, make sure it had all its strings, and they would return your ID to you. If you stole a guitar string, you'd get a write-up for theft and dangerous contraband and damaging state property. So, no bueno, right? But I started taking guitar lessons from a guy named Freedom. He'd been down a long time and he played guitar fairly well. And he taught me for about a month. I learned Simple Man on the guitar and House of the Rising Sun. And after that, I was pretty much on my own. I taught myself. What I had going for me is that I played music on the streets. Before I went to prison, I was a saxophone player. I loved the saxophone. I played the alto and tenor saxophone. And I was already acquainted with music theory. Beautiful thing about music theory is once you understand the basic concepts, you can apply that to any instrument. You have to just figure out, what fingers to press for which notes. That's it. With a guitar, it's a little bit more difficult because you also have little things like finger placement within the frets, the pressure that you have to use to press the strings, things like that. In my opinion, stringed instruments are way harder to learn than a woodwind instrument, but that's just my opinion again. Anyway, I started learning how to play the guitar, and I started to get pretty good. In El Dorado, there was also something called the band room. In the gym, during yard time, they had a room you could go into. They had musical instruments in there, electric musical instruments, electric guitars, bass guitars. They had a full drum kit, a huge drum kit. I don't even remember how many pieces it was, but it was huge. I don't remember what brand it was either. It was a high-end drum kit, though. We had a couple of mixers. We had a Zoom drum machine and a keyboard, a Yamaha keyboard. So we had some pretty cool equipment in there. And if you were level 2 or 3, you had to put in a request to get put on the band room list. It wasn't as easy as that though, because you had to have a group or a band to get in with. Different groups were in the band room on different days, and you had to be a part of a group. If you were to go in the band room on a certain day, the group that was in there on that day and time had to be cool with you being in there. So I had to hunt around for someone to get in the band room with. And nobody had an opening, especially for a guy who just started playing the guitar. But I did get in with a guy named Wire who played classic rock, and he needed a bass player. So I went in and I started playing the bass, and from time to time I would pick up the guitar and I would play rhythm guitar for him. So that was pretty cool, and after about a year of playing, I started playing my own music, and Wire, I should say. Wire and I started having some issues between the two of us. I wanted to play some original stuff. He wanted to play a handful of songs, and it was the same songs all the time. And he wasn't a fantastic guitar player. We would break for the solo, and anytime he played a solo over a piece of music, we had to switch up the chord progression to C and E. That's all he knew how to solo over. And that was really, really annoying. He was a great rhythm player, but not a great lead player. He didn't know how to play in any key. He had to play in C and E. So one day I wanted to play a couple of my originals that I'd written, and I asked him if he was cool with that, and he said yeah, and we started playing, and he couldn't play the songs, and he got mad. And he said, oh, that's that headbanging shit, and I don't want to play that, and that isn't even real music. And had he said it a little bit more respectfully and politely, we probably wouldn't have had any problems. But when he just started insulting the genre of music, essentially because he couldn't play it, I felt the need to, I felt the need to be a dick, I guess. But I said, hey man, you're just mad because, you play the same songs over and over and you can't play anything else. You can always learn new things. It just takes time. And he said, oh, I can play it just fine. I just don't want to. That's that headbanging stuff. I said, come on, man. Every time we go for one of your solos, we got to switch everything up and play in C and E. And he's like, that's not true. I'm a way better guitarist than you, and all this other junk. And he ended that statement with, you can't even play guitar. Play me something right now. He thought that I still couldn't play guitar. He wasn't aware of how far I had come. So he said, play something right now. And I started playing Money by Pink Floyd. He said, oh, that's just a fluke. That's an easy song to play. Play something else. So I started playing A Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. Once again, he said, that's a fluke. Anybody can play that. Play something else. So I started playing War Pigs by Black Sabbath. And he got so mad. He's like, you know what, screw this. You want to go? You want to go right now? I said, what do you mean? He said, you want to rock and roll? I'll teach you how to rock and roll. And I said, okay. Are we going in C and E? Is that what we're doing? And he gets all mad and he goes to pull his guitar off. He wanted to fight. He goes to rip his guitar off. And he was so mad when doing so that he smacked himself in the face with a headstock, which is where the tuners and the little pieces of string are sticking out, cut his face pretty decently. Busted himself open just trying to get the guitar off. And then he puts the guitar in the stand and he touches his head, sees that he's bleeding, like, oh, this isn't even worth it. And he ran out of the band room, slammed the door behind him. So I was just standing there. Kevin was in there at the time, and I just kind of looked at him and laughed. I said, well, what do you want to play? In addition to playing with Wire, I also played with Freedom. So I said Freedom kind of taught me how to play a little bit for about a month. Well, later on, his band, who was also in the band room on a different day and time, they needed a bass player. So I stepped in and I started playing the bass for those guys. And I still had the call out in the morning where I had been playing with Wire, although we didn't really play together like that anymore. We weren't the same band. He would go in one week, and then the next week I would go in. Or he would have 2 days that he was scheduled for a week, like Thursday and Friday we were scheduled to be in there. He would go in on one day, me and Kevin would go in on another day. But Freedom, he had a band, and they went in there Tuesdays. I want to say they went in there Tuesday night and Thursday night, and I was usually in there in the morning. But I got in with their band, I started playing bass, and I was still writing my own music. And now I had a day in the morning when I could play, and practice just my stuff. And Kevin helped me out a lot with it. And I was still going out and playing the acoustic guitar on the yard, throughout the week. So I was getting pretty good, and I was writing some pretty technical pieces of music. I'm not going to say I'm a fantastic guitar player. I'm a decent guitar player. I can write some stuff. I think what I'm actually good at is writing music, not necessarily playing said music. There are some guys out there that are so cool when it comes to their guitar abilities and talent. I wish I could do what some guys could do, like some of the guys you see on YouTube, Stevie T, Jared Dines. Those guys are great, man. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I started getting good, and sometimes Freedom and the drummer Brouillard wouldn't show up to the scheduled band practice, and it was just me and this other guy named Dave Monclaw. Dave Monclaw was their lead guitar player, and he wanted to play leads and stuff. He wanted to work on his stuff, but he couldn't if Freedom wasn't there. So when Freedom wasn't there and Brouillard wasn't there, I would pick up the other guitar and I would play rhythm. And I started playing some of my stuff one night, and Dave's just looking at me like, what is that? I'm like, that's mine. And he really, really liked it. Dave was kind of into old school groove metal, like Pantera. Nowadays we call it groove metal. I don't know what they called it back in the early 90s when Pantera was doing their thing, or first started their thing, or whenever they started. I think it was early 90s. Anyway, Dave was a big fan of Pantera, Metallica, Slayer, that type of stuff. And he really liked my music. I started playing with him. One night, Dave and I beat everybody else there. And Dave said, hey man, put on the other guitar. And I'm like, well, Freedom's going to be here. And he said, it's okay. Why don't you just strap up the other guitar and see how you do tonight. Now, I had been playing all of their songs on the bass, and I had gone out to the yard and practiced their songs on the acoustic guitar because I saw the guitar parts and I wanted to learn how to play them on the guitar, and I did. Well, I already knew their whole set, right? So Brouillard comes in and he's like, well, Freedom's coming. And Dave said, it's all right, man. And he said, okay, whatever. Well, then Freedom gets there, and Dave's like, hey, Freedom, I wanted you to try playing the bass tonight and have Eric play on rhythm, if you're okay with that. And Freedom was real happy about it. He's like, hey, man, I like playing the bass better anyway, so if he can play it, then let's see, how it works out. And they wanted to see what I could do, and we played through the set, and after that, I was their rhythm guitarist. And we started playing some of my stuff, some of their stuff, and we had a great time. One of the other things that we used to do in prison, we used to play concerts. We would put in what was called a request for activities, and we would submit it to the activities office. And the activity specialist would sign off on it. It would go up front to the deputy wardens. They would sign off on it if they agreed with it. If they didn't, they would, tell us what needed to change. Usually we would schedule a concert like 4 to 6 weeks out, and then we would have plenty of time to practice, and we would do sign-ups for the different bands that were in the band room to sign up for this concert to participate in it, and their band could play a set. When the concert came around, we would have all sorts of music. We'd have rap groups, we'd have rock, we'd have metal, we'd have some Latin music going on in there, and it was really, really cool. It was really fun. We had a great time. The day of the concert, we had a setup crew, all inmates. We would go to the band room, we would pull out all the mixers, the PA system, all the instruments, get them out, get them set up. We would have a guy who was designated as the sound guy who would work with each band, and man, it was just cool. And the concert would happen during yard time, so all the inmates would come out on the yard and watch us perform, and a lot of times the staff would come out and watch us perform too, where we would set the band up. The stage, I guess you would call it, even though it wasn't a stage, was right next to the clinic, so all the nursing staff and everything would come out. People from mental health would come down and watch us. It was just really cool. We had a good time. Shortly before I got out, I was in a mental health unit, and I played 2 concerts. The last live show I ever did was in a mental health unit or mental hospital within a prison in Lansing. And I ended up being the guitarist on everybody's set because I was the best guitarist who was there at the time. And, well, I might not have been the best guitarist that was there, but I was the best guitarist who was there and involved with that stuff. So, I played music for everybody. I did some stuff, some Tom Petty songs. I did some originals. I even played guitar with some dudes who were doing some original rap songs, which was really, really cool. And all the staff, all the support staff and everything, everybody was there. Even the warden was there, Sam Klein, and he loved it. He came up after the show and he shook my hand. He said, "I never really understood metal, but I get it now that I've seen it live. That's a lot of energy. I really enjoyed it." Anyway, that is my breakdown on music in prison. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to do a live Q&A here pretty soon, so if you guys are interested in that, be sure to stay tuned. If you're not already subscribed, you might want to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. But I really enjoy doing these videos. I really appreciate all y'all's support. You're the best. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see y'all later.
Break these chains.